a major metropolis within your own borders.
Right, exactly.
But
for sake of movie purposes,
Nick Fury is no longer in command. He shoots down the first jet that tries to leave with a rocket launcher because everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. that's on the helicarrier is following Nick Fury, except for these 2 pilots, apparently.
Yeah.
And they get in planes to do it, and one slips by him and shoots. And that's when Stark realizes, they were gonna shut the portal, and Stark tells Romanoff not to because he's gonna put the nuke there. And he runs into his own building trying to turn this thing upright. And this is where the heartbreaking part comes in because he gets through the portal, it blows up, it destroys the other army. Captain America looks up, and he kind of waits. He's like, come on. All right, close it. And he just falls fast enough to get back through the portal. But as he's falling down, like you're watching, you're like, all right, turn back on. And even Thor is like, he's not slowing down. Someone's got to catch him. And the Hulk comes out of nowhere to catch him, which was pretty cool. Lays him down. And this is where we get the shawarma line.
Yeah, the shawarma.
There's a great shawarma place. Just a couple blocks from here. I don't even know what it is, but I want to try it. And they go, well, we're not really done. He goes, all right, well after that, we'll have shawarma. And because they still have to deal with Loki.
The shawarma business had to blow up at the end of this movie.
Because I didn't know what it was either.
I had no clue what it is. I had no idea. But the shawarma business had to blow up. I think just by mentioning.
I still don't really know what it is.
I don't either.
Someone told me once it's like a sushi thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no clue. It's a booming business apparently.
Yeah, clearly.
Thank you, Marvel.
And that's basically how the movie ends. Is they defeat Loki? That's whatever, and then we get the credits. So the first credit cookie, we see someone talking. You can't really make out the face at first, but if you're a Marvel fan, you're already kind of assuming that the cryptic speech is coming from Thanos, right?
Yeah.
You kind of already got that. And then they show you. He turns, and they give you the face, the profile, and you can see, okay, that's him. And I don't even remember what his exact speech was, but it was basically like, you may have, I'm coming. I'm going to get there, and I'm taking over your planet.
What was your thoughts? I mean, now we know, it was all about the stones. But what was your thoughts as far as Thanos? Were you thinking like everybody else was, how is he going to fit into the universe, into the Marvel and Avengers universe?
I don't think so because, honestly, I always knew it was about the stones.
Okay.
They dumped the stones too early into the movies that if you were a comic book fan and remember the Infinity Gauntlet series, you kind of knew that's where they were heading.
Yeah.
Because every movie, the early movies, one was in Guardians, one was in
one was in Captain America, one was in
Captain America, one was in the Iron Man movies, one was in the Thor movies. Right. Like you're like, all right, we're not calling them the Infinity Stones yet, but these are the Infinity Stones,
right.
By like the third one, you're like, come on, we know where this is going. So I did know that we were going to the Infinity Stones, and he was going to end life, as we know it. But that's why he makes such a great bad guy, because all really good bad guys think they're good guys.
Right.
He thinks he has to be bad to accomplish a good goal. He thinks destroying half the population fixes the world's problems.
But it doesn't.
But that's not what humanity wants.
Right.
Doesn't matter if that even does solve the problem.
No, it's what he thinks humanity wants, but it's not.
Right, but humanity has no say.
That's right. Because you're at the mercy.
Right. So, and then we have a second credit cookie. And this one is hysterical. It's actually one of the funniest credit cookies, and there's not even a line of dialogue.
No, there's not.
They just eat shawarma.
Who eats shawarma? That's my question to you.
Every single person except for Captain America.
Why?
Well, that's my other fun fact.
You don't say.
I don't. Captain America does not eat Swarmer. He's the only person not to eat Swarmer, and he's the only person to cover his face. And the reason he covers his face is because he was already filming a new movie called Snowpiercer, and he had to have a beard for that movie. So they slapped a prosthetic jaw on him, which is why you never see him eat. He couldn't.
I know exactly where you got that from.
I read it years ago. But now, do you know why the filming of the Swarmer scene took place so long after the filming of the Avengers that he was even in another movie?
That I don't know.
And there's the last fun fact of the evening. The reason that happened was when Tony Stark laid on the floor to film the scene after he had just almost died but didn't and then still had to fight Loki, he made 6 or 7 jokes. And they didn't decide until the final edit which one of the 6 or 7 they were going to use.
Really?
So instead of filming 7 cookie credits, they waited till they make the decision and called everyone in just for that one scene. It's also a reason why it's such a simple, no lines, just sit there and eat scene.
Oh, wow. It's
Yes.
Mic drop. You win. Round 3, yes.
I know my Avengers.
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah. It's an interesting little fact about the movie, you know?
Absolutely.
So, is there anything else you'd like to say about this movie before we end this podcast?
The beginning of the end, I guess, would be a great way to end this. Being that because this is where it all begins. You know, this is where it all begins. This is where the band comes together, all NSYNC and Britney Spears, and it's all fun and games. And then we start getting into Civil War and Age of Ultron and so on and so forth. So this was really a great start for a team up. It was really a great intro into this separate track of Marvel films.
Yeah, I love the way you say that. And also, it leads us to see who these characters truly are. Yeah. So if you really did believe that Tony Stark was just a self-centered egomaniac, while he has many of the qualities, he sacrifices himself for the world. He's not going to let New York get destroyed. This is what leads to his death later on in the MCU. Captain America is Captain America. He's a 1940s hero. Mm-hmm. And this is also what leads to his exit of the MCU in the same movie where Tony Stark left. So, you know, this is really setting up who these characters are and are going to be from now on. And what makes them who they are.
And it's also fun to see who the catalyst is. And that catalyst is Nick Fury.
Yes. Well, and Coulson. Because when he died, because Phil Coulson, Agent Phil Coulson, dies in this movie. Now, we know he comes back in the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, mm-hmm. but they have this whole Tahiti story, and it turns out that was a project, and they used alien DNA, and this is how they brought back the Kree and all that. But when he dies in this, Nick Fury actually announces it over comms, and everybody is visibly distraught. And Phil even says, as he's dying, they needed something too.
Right.
And then dies. And I've always felt that they needed something to rally behind. He was going to be, if him dying is what was going to bring this team back to being a team and get them focused to do what they have to do, then he accepted his fate of dying.
I'm going to go one step further, and I'm going to say his last words were probably something to live for, being humanity. Being humanity, to be part of it. Because basically each one of them, and we see this in Civil War too, each one of them have beliefs and the different belief systems in the point of what's greater for humanity, like we spoke about earlier with Thanos. but I'm going to say that his last 2 words were probably "live for."
It's very possible. Now, I just want to circle back real quick because just before the scene where Coulson dies, this is where Thor gets trapped in Hulk's cage because Loki got out because of Clint, and he puts a projection of himself coming out of the cage. Thor dives at him to stop him, and he goes, "Are you ever going to not fall for that?" And another hilarious line. I mean, it leads to the death of Coulson, and that's a sad moment, but just the fact that he caught him that way, you know, and then he hits it, and the thing unlocks, and it's about to fall, and it does fall. Whatever. My final thoughts on the movie, though, I love the MCU. I love everything about it. I even enjoyed Iron Man 3. That's saying a lot. That means I have to really love the MCU. And I understand that. But I still do, and I stand by it. Now, one scene we did not catch on, and I think it really tells us who the Avengers are, is at the very end of the movie, Colby Smulders, I can't think of her character name at the moment.
Maria Hill.
There you go, Maria Hill. She says something along the lines of, if we get in this situation again, will they come back? And Nick Fury says, they will. And she says, do you really believe that? He goes, I do. And when she says, why? He goes, because we'll need them to.
Yeah.
They know we need them. They'll be here. And that goes for all of them. Even the egomaniac Stark. You know, like, their sense of duty may not be to country or whatever, to government,
right?
But it is to country and people.
Yeah.
That's shown when Coulson dies, and you can see that Tony Stark is very upset. And Captain America says, is that the first soldier you ever lost? He goes, we aren't soldiers. He's very clear to point out we are not soldiers. Like, we are not members of the U.S. military,
right?
Even if they're using us as such. And that leads us directly into what causes civil war in this universe. Now, I understand that this Civil War is very different than the Marvel comic universe Civil War, because in that one, it was over the Registration Act, which they kind of weaved in here, but it was more with the Sentinels that were in the X-Men and stuff, but they couldn't use any of that stuff, so they had to come up with a new way, and they ended up using the Winter Soldier, but to be the catalyst here. But so, like you said, this is a great beginning to an end, and this was the end of Phase 1, or maybe the next movie was the official end of Phase 1, but you know, this really leads us into what we eventually get with Endgame, which was the end, but not, because we're gonna move forward into the next iteration of the Avengers, which we're just not gonna have two of its main cast.
The new Avengers. That's what it's gonna be.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, that's what I have to say about the movie. But before we go, we have a great offer for you. Cuts by Magic is offering all our listeners a 10% discount on any custom orders with code Avengers. Contact Cuts by Magic by searching Facebook for Cuts by Magic. That's CUTS space BY space MAGIC. Message the page and tell them Avengers, and you'll receive a 10% discount on your entire order. Not one item. It'll be a 10% discount on the entire order. So the more you order, the more you save.
Please join us on the UFP Facebook page, where we'll be holding polls for upcoming discussions to be hosted here on the podcast.
So, Tribz, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me milling about the streets of Las Vegas as if I was a 1940s out-of-place individual, thinking Bugsy Siegel still ran the joint. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me at TrekFanLV, the T to F, L, and V are capital. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me popping in on the UFP page from time to time. So, Magic, where can people find you when you're not tossing around a demigod back and forth and finally look at him and go, puny god?
That is such a great line we didn't touch on. So when I'm not getting mad, or mad always,
Ooh.
you can find me on Twitter at MagicDrop5. There are no spaces.